We would like to acknowledge the Yagara people and the Turrbal people as the traditional custodians of Meanjin, the lands in which we record this podcast today. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging.
Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of For the Health of It podcast, a podcast made for healthcare professionals by a nurse on the inside. So my name is Jess Tully and I'm actually the HCA Brand Ambassador, but also I'm a registered nurse myself for over the last 10 years. So I've been working with Healthcare Australia for a very, very long time, back when I was a baby student RN, so 12 years ago. I worked as an AIN with the company and I have since been doing rural remote contracts and metro work across 5 states of Australia. So I'm a huge lover of Team Purple and this particular episode is all about my recent contract in Port Lincoln. So as a brand ambassador, I'm behind the scenes with Healthcare Australia, but I'm also making sure to stay clinical because that is what I love, that is my passion, and everything to do with agency is just what I want to do every single day. So my recent contract was incredible. South Australia, you need to add it to your list to go. I never realised how beautiful and how much there was to do in South Australia. It really rocked my world. I had the best time. I wish I could have stayed longer, but I'm definitely going to go back to South Australia for sure. So you've obviously clicked on this episode because you're interested in going to Port Lincoln or you're interested in going to South Australia. So I'm going to dive straight into the questions. And I'm going to hopefully just give you a little bit more of an insight. So Port Lincoln is right on the coastline of South Australia if you look at a map. The reason that I chose Port Lincoln is because of a personal bucket list goal that I have. So when I started R&R nursing 5 years ago, I decided to write a bucket list and I decided to nurse my way around Australia and tick off my personal bucket list items, which was a really incredible experience. One of them that's right on the top of the list is shark cage diving, and Port Lincoln is the only place in Australia where you can be in the water in a cage with great white sharks. So that was an experience that I've always wanted to do, and yeah, I could do a contract in Port Lincoln. So to me, it was a win-win. So that's the reason I chose it. And when I was actually going to Port Lincoln, they had a festival on called Tunarama. So Port Lincoln is in the Eyre Peninsula and it's very famous for its fishing and its seafood. And I love seafood, so it was like another win to go to Port Lincoln. But this Tunarama festival was actually playing and it was going from the Thursday to the Sunday. And I was Googling it and apparently it is the world famous tuna toss. So they have a rubber tuna. It's not a real tuna, and they toss it and whoever tosses it the furthest is the winner. So I actually got to watch this year's world championship for the tuna toss and see the winner. I don't remember how far he threw it, but I tell you it went really far. So very strong individual. There was a woman that won a few years ago as well, but this particular man has won in the last couple of years. So that was quite an interesting thing, and they had heaps of restaurants open, there were heaps of bands playing, like it was a really amazing vibe, and it's one of their biggest events that they have in Port Lincoln, and I was very lucky to actually secure my contract and start right when Tunarama had begun. So yeah, Port Lincoln itself is has a population of about 16,000 as per Google. That's what I had a look at. So it's classed as a regional placement. So you have regional, rural and remote when you do these types of contracts. I personally love to do regional contracts because you don't feel so isolated. You've got doctors that are on the floor with you. There's usually CT, X-ray, things like that where you have access to. So I feel more comfortable doing R&R in a regional setting, but I have worked also in rural settings as well, but I haven't branched out to remote, which is a whole nother ball game in itself. But we do have a podcast about that. If you scroll through, you can see we did a RAN podcast all about remote area nursing. We talked about all the different steps. So if that's something that interests you, then definitely go back and listen to that episode. So I'm going to talk about the hospital itself. The hospital is actually quite modern looking, really clean, really lovely. Even the outside's really beautiful. The only thing with it is it's very backwards in times in terms of paperwork. So there's no computers there, like 0 computers, which was quite a shock to me. So I had to go straight back to paper, and I haven't actually written patient notes in like a folder and handwritten for the longest time. And I tell you, I got hand cramps every single day. So get that wrist moving, bring a pen and get ready for a lot of notes. So I actually got a contract in emergency, but I also worked on the ward as well. So in emergency, you've got 5 acute beds, you've got 1 resus, and then you've got 2 rooms that you can kind of use for fast tracking, to have a bit more of a private triage consult. You can do some IVAB, some fluids, some bloods, things like that, and then pop them back into the waiting room. It was very busy when I was there. A lot of the time, the patients aren't able to get into the GP practice. They've got like a 3 to 4 week wait sometimes, so they're forced to kind of come to the hospital because they don't really have another choice. So you get bombarded with a lot of Cat 5s, but then you also do get a lot of proper ED, presentations as well. There's a lot of transfers to the RA, which is the Royal Adelaide Hospital. So yeah, I mean, nearly a daily occurrence. You're always sending people to the RA or accepting people from the RA. And if you download a app, this was very handy for me. So there's an app called Eyre Map, and this particular app you can have a look at, and you can actually find when the plane is coming. So if you've got an unstable patient and you know that the plane's coming, but you're kind of like, are they left yet? Like, how far do you reckon they are? You just have a look at this Eyre Map and you can actually track the little tiny plane. You can see it flying from Adelaide. So it just gives you a bit more of an idea. Apparently it's about a half an hour flight, and then they just got to land and obviously drive to the Port Lincoln Hospital. But it just gives you more of an estimate, like an ETA. So definitely download Eyre Map because I found that really useful. In terms of the rest of the hospital, you've got 2 wards that are 2 sections. So one section is mainly for like acute patients, need a little bit more monitoring, a little bit more unstable. They need maybe 2 to 4 hourly obs, neuro obs, things like that. And there's a little section called special care for those even sicker patients. You share that side of the ward with maternity as well, so they're just across from you. So if you're a midwife listening to this, they are always needing midwives, so absolutely apply because they need you. Then the other section of the ward is you've got kind of like longer stay patients, so rehabilitation, a lot of palliative care, like end of life situations, maybe more long-term antibiotics, just that longer admissions, maybe awaiting nursing home placements. So you've got your 2 mixture of the wards, and they do have a section for like dialysis and stuff, but I didn't know too much about that and how often they were open. They do have an operating theatre as well for emergency cases and elective cases, with a little day surgery unit. I never got to go and have a little venture around that area, but yes, they do have scrub scout positions, recovery positions, and just everything really. What else about the hospital? There's a little cafe there, and it's open till I think 2:00. I know that when you finish your morning shift that it is closed already, so if you do forget your lunch, you do have the option of this little cafe, and there's like sandwiches and sweet treats and muffins and things like that. The shifts are all standard normal time, 7 till 3:30, 1:30 till 10, and then 9 till 7:30 for a night shift. So I did do night shift as well, and heads up, if you are doing an emergency contract, you won't be placed in emergency on your night shift. So it's just one of their regular staff members that will be in ED, and you'll be placed on the ward, and you'll just be helping out if they get really flooded with cases or things like that. And it's just what they do. So I was on the water for a few times, which is fine. I love going back to the ward. What else do I have? So if you're going, and especially if you're in emergency, definitely download Eyre Map. The staff were very welcoming of agency. They've only just started introducing agency this year in 2023. So very new to them. They're not used to it, but they are extremely accepting. They're so lovely. There was a few times where I'd finish shift. I was going to get a taxi back just to my place. It's only about $6 or $7 to get a taxi back. And they were always offering to give me a lift home. They're just honestly the kindest souls ever. And I felt extremely welcome in that town. So definitely can say that I will go back to that hospital. I mean, the staff alone just really what made me want to go back. The town itself, I was placed in accommodation right on the coast, which was really beautiful. I mean, I haven't done a coast placement for such a long time. I was on Thursday Island, so I got to be on an island, which was beautiful. But a lot of the time when I'm rural, you're inland, so you're not really around beaches. So it was really beautiful to actually be right on the coastline. Port Lincoln itself, I walked all through Port Lincoln. I didn't have a car accessible to me, so I just did heaps and heaps of walking. They've got a track, actually. I've written it down because I never know how to say it. It starts with a P, and it's like a 37-kilometer one-way walk, and it's like the entire coast of Port Lincoln. It's really, really beautiful. I made sure I didn't do all of it. I'm not going to do 37 Ks because I'm not that fit, but I definitely had days where I was doing 17,000 steps because I was like just really loving walking around the town and exploring. They've got a jetty in the main part of Port Lincoln, and it goes all the way out, and then they've connected a shark net around a particular area. So if you want to go swimming, there are people that swim in the actual ocean, but because there's a higher amount of great white sharks in that region, especially because you can go diving with them, they do have a big shark net cage, which is really, really good. So I did go swimming in there a few times, and the sunrise and sunset is absolutely stunning in that location. It was daylight savings for me, and I'm not used to daylight savings, so it was extremely dark in the morning when I was starting my shift, which was a very new experience. So if you're packing, I would definitely pack a nice light jumper that you can walk to work in and actually have at work, because I was actually quite cold when I got to Port Lincoln. They were having a lot of days where it was 38 to 40 degrees, so I packed a lot of summer light clothing, but then there were times for that first week when I got there where I was actually freezing and I had to wear a pair of jeans, and I really wish that I'd bought more jumpers. So definitely do that. Definitely bring your walking shoes, running shoes, hiking shoes, because there's amazing opportunities to go hiking, and especially with that amazing track that starts with P, which I wish I knew what the word was, going up and down, like doing heaps and heaps of walks. You can even walk to this beautiful beach called Shelley Beach, which is just beautiful and flat and just really relaxing. So I went swimming there a few times and just laid there and read a book and just laid in the sun. So it was really nice. And there are sea lions that you can see in the wild around Port Lincoln. I never got to see one. I tried so many times, and there's apparently this really fat sea lion that stays by the wharf, and I went to the wharf so many times to try and find him, and I couldn't find him. But then there were people on the same day that went for the same walk that saw him. So I'm just obviously a little bit blind when trying to look for sea lions. I'm going to go through amazing things that you can do while you're in Port Lincoln. So I personally wanted to hire a car on my days off because I wanted to fully explore Port Lincoln and the surrounds. So when I go to contracts, especially with my bucket list adventures, I really like to tick off things, and you need a car to be able to go and explore. So I went to a mechanic called Sparks and Spanners, and it's just in the city centre, and it was about $60 a day to hire a car, which to me I thought was a pretty good deal. So hired a car, and I got to go all through the Eyre Peninsula. It was actually insane. Down the bottom of Port Lincoln, you've got somewhere called a place called Whalers Way, which is extremely popular. You've got Lincoln, oh my God, Port Lincoln National Park. I kept saying Lincoln Park every time I was trying to say it, and I was like, oh, that's a band. No, so Port Lincoln National Park. And there's some beautiful hiking areas there and some beautiful beaches. You do need to get a permit for your car for even if it's just the one day that you're going. So just go online and get a permit before you go. It's very cheap. I actually didn't get to experience the national park because there was about a huge bushfire on the day that I was supposed to go. So I was very bummed about that. Then there's also Tumby Bay, which is beautiful beaches as well. These are just like the spots that a lot of the other agency nurses went to, and a lot of the locals that would tell me about where to go. And then there is Coffin Bay. So Coffin Bay is very famous for their oysters. They have an incredible restaurant called Oyster HQ. It's only half an hour from Port Lincoln too. So if you just want to go for lunch or dinner, it's not that far of a drive. Oyster HQ, delicious. The oysters were insane. The rest of the seafood, bit average to be quite honest, but the actual oysters themselves really rocked my world. So they do a tour a few times a day actually for $50, and you put on these really funny waterproof overalls. And then you walk through the water, and then they have a beautiful little setup in the middle of, not in the middle of the ocean, but like, in the middle of the water. So you're surrounded by ocean water, and you sit down and you actually learn all about their oysters, how they harvest them, and then you get to shuck them yourself and eat fresh oysters that have literally just been picked for you. You shuck them yourself and then you get to eat them. So that was a really awesome experience. You got to have a glass of bubbles, glass of wine with it. Delicious. Coffin Bay itself is a really beautiful little town, really beautiful beaches. There's giant emus everywhere. When you're driving, they're a little bit confronting because they're obviously so massive. And if you see one emu, like, be careful, because there's always another emu. Like, they're always walking with a friend. They're never just walking alone. So be careful when you're driving. And apparently the emus go into the water and have a little swim near Oyster HQ where the restaurant is. And I never got to see that, but I really wanted to, because I think just watching an emu try and swim in water would be quite a sight to see. So yeah, I really wish. And if anyone's got a video of that, please send it to me, because it just sounds hilarious. So you can also go to the Coffin Bay National Park. Now, I didn't get to personally go. There was only so much I could cram in my trip. Everyone keeps asking, how was your holiday? When actually I was on a contract. So I was like, it wasn't a holiday, everybody. I was on a contract working 40 hours a week. But I made it look like a holiday because I got to do so much amazing things. But I never got to go to the Coffin Bay National Park. If you Google the images, it looks exactly like that, because all the other agency staff had gone and were showing me photos, and I was like, oh my God, this place looks insane. Like, the whitest beaches you can ever imagine, crystal clear blue waters. Yeah, I'm very upset that I never went, but I'm just gonna have to go back now. I drove up, so on the way to Streaky Bay, and I did like heaps of cool touristy things on the way going up, which was really, really fun. And I wanted to do the swimming with the sea lions. So you can do it in Port Lincoln through a company called Calypso, or you can do it in Baird Bay. And I'm hoping I say it right. It's Baird. So I heard other people say Baird Bay, but hopefully I do say it correctly. It was about $200, and it was about a half-day tour. So you meet up in the morning, you go out in a little boat. The water is just so beautiful and clear. We went swimming with dolphins, which is something I've never done before, and it was such a beautiful experience. They were extremely playful. The host that was with us had a little shell in her hand, and she was playing with the dolphin with this shell. I got to capture some beautiful videos and images. If you don't have a GoPro, which I didn't actually own a GoPro, I went to the camera store in Port Lincoln, and you can obviously buy it online as well. It's called a Pelican waterproof case. Highly recommend. I put my iPhone in there and I took it underwater and took the most incredible videos and pictures of all my adventures, and I got such good quality videos. People on the boat were making me airdrop all my stuff to them because they were like, this is actually insane. Like, you've captured so many amazing videos. So if you don't have a GoPro, don't stress out at all. Buy this Pelican waterproof case. Like, 10 out of 10 recommend. So we went swimming with the sea lions, and then we went back on the boat, and then we went swimming with the dolphins. Then we went to go see the sea lions, and I was lucky enough to see a sea lion with a giant octopus attached to him, and I thought the octopus was attacking him, but it turns out he was eating the octopus. And then all the sea lions were sharing this giant octopus, so that was quite an unreal experience to see. I also got to capture a video of a sea lion just coming up to me and kissing me on the face, and then going off for a little swim. So that was quite an amazing experience. I'd actually written on my bucket list, get kissed by a sea lion, which a lot of people were like, that's a bit unrealistic. Like, you're not going to a zoo, you're not going to get kissed by a sea lion. But I mean, I got kissed by a sea lion, and I'm going to put the video up and show everybody because it was actually insane. So going up to Baird Bay was amazing. I never went up as far as Streaky Bay, but then I came all the way back down, and that was a great use of the hire car. I just did that for about 2-3 days. So definitely get a hire car when you're there, because I got to experience so much. Now, I got to go shark cage diving as well, and this is like a huge highlight, and obviously something that gravitated me to go and work in Port Lincoln. So this shark cage diving experience, obviously, it rocked my world. I'm so glad I did it. It's a giant day. It's such a big day. It's through Calypso. So they're the only company that do it, and they also have a license to throw burley into the water. So burley, blood fish guts to attract the sharks. So the sharks come very quickly when you get there. We saw a shark within like 2 minutes by the time we stopped the boat, because they were just so attracted to the burley. So you get picked up at about 6 a.m, you pick everyone else up, then you get on the boat. It's a 3-hour drive out into the middle of the ocean, and then you stop, and then they start throwing the burley out. They're attracting the sharks. You get put in your groups, and even when you're not in the cage, you're still having so much fun because you're watching sharks on the outside, and you've got a top deck as well, so you can watch from above, and it's a really crazy experience to know that there's these giant great whites like right there, and you can see their shadows, you can see the fins, they jump out of the water. It is very, very unreal experience. Now, going into the cage itself, it's called surface diving, so I've got no experience in diving or anything like that, and you don't need to. So you get given a regulator, and you put it in your mouth, you breathe through that. It really did I did have trouble with it. It did really freak me out trying to breathe underwater with that because I don't have that experience with diving. So that took me a good 5 minutes to get used to before I got to really enjoy the experience. I hired a GoPro while I was there though as well. And when I went underwater, it was just so amazing to see these humongous great white sharks just swimming straight past you. I kept holding my breath because I was so scared of I didn't want them to hear me and I would have to try and breathe again. But I captured some insane videos, and afterwards I just was full of adrenaline and just so excited by the experience. So do that while you're in Port Lincoln for sure. You can also do a combo deal with the company and do swimming with the sea lions and the shark cage. So you can do that combo deal, or you can do what I did and go to Baird Bay, which was such an unreal experience as well. So that was great. Highly recommend. Now, just a few more things around Port Lincoln, what you can do. There is insane wineries, absolutely stunning wineries. I didn't get a chance to go, but there's one called Peter Teakle, and a couple of the agency staff went there for some birthday celebrations, and the photos are amazing. It looked so great. The food was really fancy, high quality. The vineyard was really, really lovely. You can get great photos. So if you're into wineries, there's a few around. There's about 3 or 4 around Port Lincoln, so definitely do that. And then also food-wise, now this is the biggest tip I can tell you, is when I got to Port Lincoln, I don't have a car, right? So I did my Woolworths delivery. If you haven't done that before, you need to start doing that. So as soon as I had my address, I went straight onto the app, did a huge order for Woolworths, and then got a delivery window picked, and then I got it delivered. So I actually had it delivered because I had the address before I left, and I got to order all my food, and then I arrived to my accommodation, and then all my food arrived, and it was just the most convenient thing I've ever done. So I was super grateful and so stoked that I had done that. You can join online for the Woolworths Unlimited, it's called, and it's $15 a month, and you get free delivery over $100. You don't have to pay for bags. You get more delivery windows. I always join when I go on contracts because I just find it so helpful. And a huge tip about Port Lincoln is the water tastes terrible. And I'm talking next level nasty. I thought it was just me, and I'm a huge water drinker. And I was trying, and I was boiling it, and everyone was like, nah, I can't drink the water. Even the locals struggle with drinking the water. It honestly tastes so bad. So when you're doing your Woolworths delivery order, you can order those big 10-litre water packs. Do it. And buy a couple of those, because I went through about 5 or 6 of those easy. And then I also bought heaps of litre bottles. So do that. Honestly, I've really struggled with the water there. There is a beautiful restaurant called Fumo 28, and obviously that region is really famous for its seafood, so it's a nice little seafood restaurant. The takeaway menu is $10 cheaper than the dine-in menu, and it tastes amazing. So just get it takeaway. Totally, you're going to save so much money. You can even get the oysters takeaway. I got this crab and prawn linguine that I was obsessed with. I had it 4 times there while I was on contract. I was just that obsessed with it. Delicious. And then they also have an app. So it's like Uber Eats, but it's called Order.ru. So Order.ru app, you can get alcohol delivered. You can also get food delivered. There's about 8 different restaurants that will deliver to you. Super handy. So download the app before you go down there, and as well download that Air Map app. I hope this gives you a little bit more of an insight about Port Lincoln in itself. The town is gorgeous. The people are gorgeous. You get to be coastal. There are things to do around the town if you don't have a car, but do keep in mind, if you're going to be there, get out and explore, because places that are only half an hour from Port Lincoln are absolutely beautiful, like breathtaking views. So don't miss that opportunity when you're there. Just suck it up and get a car and just go out and just explore. It's like my biggest tip that I can give you. Plus the water is nasty, so make sure you get some water. So they're the two biggest takeaways. If you have gone to Port Lincoln or you want to go to Port Lincoln, you can message me anytime on the Healthcare Australia Instagram. So it's just healthcare.australia. I'm the one actually behind the scenes of replying to everybody, making the content, making the reels, and you know, I love interacting and talking about agency nursing. This is obviously a huge passion of mine. I also have Facebook, so HCA Ambassador. If you have a look online, and you can add me as a friend and you can chat to me on Messenger. I honestly could talk about this all day, every day. Every contract I've done has been the most incredible experience. That's now the 5th state that I've worked in with Healthcare Australia. I'm so grateful, and I cannot wait to go back to South Australia, honestly. But it was great chatting to you guys, and I'll chat to you again soon. Okay, bye.